Hello there, everybody, and welcome back to another tier list here on Star Wars Lads. We are doing February's tier list, and voted by all of you, you guys chose Star Wars television seasons. We are going to be ranking every season of Star Wars television. This was actually suggested to us a while back on one of our other videos, so we're glad this one won the poll and that you guys get to see this happen. So we're going to dive into that. Before we do so, though, please hit that like button down below. Subscribe to our channel. Help us get to about 40 likes on this video. And if you can help us get to 1,500 subs, we greatly appreciate it. We're on our way there. Your subscriptions really matter. Comment below. Let us know how you'd rank these seasons of Star Wars television. We're going to be talking about every season of Star Wars television that has been in a continuity. So what we mean by that is we are leaving out the Lego series, and then we're also leaving out web series, even though Forces of Destiny is in a continuity. It's only 5-minute episodes, and you could say, yeah, well, you guys are ranking the Clone Wars micro series. Well, that's a lot better than Forces of Destiny. So let's bring in the tier list here. And we're going to kick it off with Star Wars Droids, the first ever Star Wars TV series. Star Wars Droids is a good show. It's a fun 80s show. However, when we compare it to a lot of what we've gotten recently with Star Wars, especially a lot more impactful Star Wars storytelling, I think Droids is going to wind up in my C tier. If I'm ranking the other two, the first two seasons of Ewoks as well, there's not too much that separates the two seasons of Ewoks. It's pretty similar type of stuff. I've always kind of preferred Ewoks a little more, so I'm going to put Ewoks in C also, but right ahead of Droids.
The next one is the first from the 2003 era, the Clone Wars micro series season 1. I quite like this one. I think the story is solid. I especially love the ending with the Anakin and Asajj Ventress stuff. Grievous, obviously, his entrance is iconic here. The clones themselves are really cool, and then Obi-Wan gets to be in full clone trooper armor. Fordo is still one of my favorite clones ever. I want to say bottom of A, top of B. I think it's your call here.
I was going to go A tier for this as well. I think most of my favorite things in Clone Wars '03 are in this season. I love the Ventress stuff. I love everything on Munilist, the Obi-Wan versus Dirge fight, Grievous's introduction, like you mentioned. And I like how in Clone Wars '03, even though it's a little less character-centric and story-focused, I like that it's in the vein of what inspired eventually the Clone Wars TV show, the '08 show, because we constantly are switching back and forth from a lot of different Jedi and a lot of different groups of people. We have the Mace Windu episode where he's punching super battle droids. We have the Luminara Embarrass Offish episode, and we also have Kit Fisto underwater. Like a lot of things that inspired later episodes of the Clone Wars show. I would definitely put it in A tier. So when we look at the season 2, I think season 2 for me, the Battle of Coruscant is incredible. I love that sequence. Love Shaak Ti in this season as well. The Anakin and Obi-Wan stuff, while I think is really good, definitely their attempt at going with a more linear story, it always felt like the piece of Star Wars that I just wasn't as into when I watched the Clone Wars. For season 2, I am mixed between B and A, and I'd be happy with either one, but that's where I'm right on the bubble between those two for this one.
Yeah, I do agree with your point of like especially Battle of Coruscant. That is iconic. I do quite like the Obi-Wan and Anakin arc. I think it's a very fitting thematic setup for what episode 3 will be. That scene where just Anakin like pushing his mech arm through, just like he's just screaming and like I don't know that feels like the most Anakin moment of the whole series for me, and one of the first symbolic pieces of storytelling that like really hit me. So for me, I would push it to bottom of A. The Clone Wars season 1. Season 1 I think was rough. It is the kiddiest version of the show. Clones were some POV that we known was an option, but for them to be so fully fleshed out, they needed someone to like uplift them. Malevolence arc was quite fun. Rookies is when I realized this show could be something different. Like Cloak of Darkness was quite good. Lair Grievous was really good. But as far as the first season goes, some of the animation was a little rough too, all that stuff. I want to give it a B minus.
I was going to go with a B as well. Well, it doesn't really have any episodes that are like top 10 episodes of all time. I would argue Rookies possibly because of its impact on the rest of the show. What this show does in season 1 is it lays the foundation for almost everything we're going to see moving forward. Like you mentioned, Ambush shows us that this show is going to give a lot of character and a lot of importance to the clones, and that was followed through with the rest of the series. The Lair of Grievous was an episode that I always loved and I rewatched all the time. Riding that line between the goofy General Grievous and the Clone Wars '03 General Grievous, I thought that was an episode that was kind of right in between, a darker Grievous episode that I really enjoyed. Always loved the Ryloth arc. And then the introduction of Cad Bane with Hostage Crisis, and even the Dooku captured stuff introduces Hondo. There are a lot of big things in this season that were introduced. I think for the most part it works. But when we look at season 2, oftentimes in my head at least, I often group season 1 and 2 together because it was the same animation style. But season 2 has a lot more great episodes, and Holocron Heist gave us a much stronger version of Cad Bane than we even got in Hostage Crisis. Always loved the second battle of Geonosis with landing at Point Rain. The horror stuff I've gone over many times in my Star Wars holiday specials or Halloween specials, but Legacy of Terror and Brain Invaders I think are really cool, very unique Star Wars. Deserter, where we introduced Cut LaQuain, I thought that was a really cool episode. Also the introduction of the Death Watch. Loved all that. There's a lot of really great moments in season 2, and I think I would be leaning towards an A for season 2 of the Clone Wars.
Yeah, I agree with you. I do love everything with Geonosis all the way into the Brain Invaders arc. Yeah, that was a really strong stretch that I think goes underappreciated for what we think about the Clone Wars today. Deserter arc was really a great episode to really show off how clones are starting to think independently. Death Watch, so good. Seeing Mandalore and seeing a different Mandalore than I think a lot of people who are reading the Republic Commando books and all that. Yeah, I'll give it an A. Then let's move into third season of the Clone Wars. I mean, it started off with a bang with the whole ARC Troopers arc. Seeing Heavy again with slightly better animation, even seeing characters who die instantly like cut up. It was so nice. When I look at this arc, it does this season. It feels like a lot of it really picked up more in the second half of the season. I do really remember Heroes on Both Sides being like my first fun look at politics in Star Wars. But then you still have things like Hunt for Zero and but Night Sisters onward. Mortis is an arc that I think when it came out, I liked it, but I kind of dismissed it. Now it's become one of the biggest things out there. But I don't know if it's actually better than season 2. It looks better, but I think there's some better stories in season 2. So I don't really know where I'd put it, but I guess I'll defer to you there.
Yeah, I was thinking this too. I think there are stronger overall stories in season 2 of the Clone Wars, but I think season 3 has more of like my all-time favorites. Like Mortis is, if not my favorite, amongst my top 2 or 3 favorite Clone Wars arcs of all time. I also love the Citadel arc, and I love all the stuff with the Night Sisters. And then the ARC Trooper stuff is a great start. This season, you always think of as the one that jumped with the animation style, right? But it doesn't happen until the second half of the season, and that's when the season gets a lot
Yeah.
better. So the first half of the season is really carried by the ARC Trooper arc and the flashback with Domino Squad. When I was prepping for this video, I was like, yeah, season 3 is one of my favorite seasons. But then looking at it, I was like, I don't know if it is. It's got a great like last 4 arcs and a great first arc, but a lot of the standalone episodes and a couple of the arcs in the middle just mediocre. I'd put this an A, but I think I would put it under season 2. So when we look at season 4 of the Clone Wars, this season started to really get into like arc heavy storytelling. We had a lot less singular episodes, and most of the arcs were pretty good. The Mon Cala arc, I've always enjoyed the Mon Cala arc. I don't think it's a great one, but when we get to Umbara, everything after that pretty much just ramps up into like some of the best Star Wars TV you'll see. The Zygerian stuff's pretty good, but I love the Racco Hardeen episodes where Obi-Wan fakes his death. All that's great. Massacre is a wonderful episode where Grievous takes down all of the Night Sisters, and we get to see that happen. And then eventually we get the rebirth of Maul and the Bounty episode with Asajj Ventress teaming up with Boba Fett. This one's really close for me too. I'm not sure if I want to say A or S, and I think it's maybe the top of A. Some of the arcs in here are just top of the top.
I also want to say top of A. I don't think it's quite S tier, but I think this is like the first season that's like definitively better than the first of the micro series from 2003. Like you said, I like the Mon Cala arc. I like the shark guy. Umbara is top Star Wars Clone Wars ever. Like it's so dark. There are things that happen in season 7 that are dark, but nothing touches Umbara. I think there's the darkness here that is just it is quite literally the heart of darkness for our Star Wars storytelling. Reiko Hardin arc is so underrated. I think this is when Obi-Wan also like stops fully listening to the council because he just goes along with it so easily, and if he has some reservations. Rebirth them all. That is the way to end a season. Yeah, A tier, top of A tier all the way. All right, and our season 5 in a lot of ways this was the end of Clone Wars for me, and I honestly thought it was an S tier. I think this is still to this day the strongest animated season we've ever seen. Revival, so cool. That's such a cool arc. I actually really like the Onderon arc. I think Onderon, just seeing Saw Gerrera and all those characters, and now has only made this arc even better. The Younglings arc is also quite underrated. I like how Ahsoka at this point now, at one point in life, she's powered down by Grievous. Here, she's able to like fend them off. Like, I really did appreciate that. Shadow Collective. This is like, wow, this is like underground moving around, Maul reaching a different level. The wrong Jedi. Honestly, you could have ended this show here and we would have never seen Ahsoka ever again. And I would have been heartbroken for my rest of the time as a Star Wars fan. And seeing her walk away, even with Anakin begging her, telling her that, I understand. And she's like, I do too. In some ways, I kind of wish Ahsoka just disappeared. And I think that would have been just as devastating and powerful for me. Yeah, it was incredible.
I agree. This is an S tier season of Clone Wars, and I think it's the best season of the Clone Wars. The worst arc is D Squad, and that's not even really a bad arc. It's okay. I think the worst part of D Squad is that it's 4 episodes long, and when we were watching those episodes every single week, kind of like the Martez sisters arc, but that one I actually think is bad. You're just like, when is this going to end? It's going on for so long. But then when you follow it up with Maul and the Shadow Collective and the whole fight between Maul and Palpatine and Savage, all that is just insane stuff that I never thought I would see. Obi-Wan getting to see Satine die, just the breakdown of Obi-Wan, even the beginning of the season with Obi-Wan and Adigalia versus Maul and Savage, and then Ventress shows up. This is the best Maul's ever been in anything, so it's wonderful there. And then we've got one of the seminal Ahsoka stories. And even things like Younglings, Gunji coming back in the Bad Batch. There's a lot of legacy here. Onderon created Saw Gerrera. This season has a lot of legacy, and it's one of the best seasons of Star Wars TV ever. Definitely an S tier for me as well. So next we're looking at Star Wars, The Clone Wars Season 6. This was about a year and a half later. This season came out on Netflix. This season is one that I feel like I don't think about as much when I think about The Clone Wars, because it was kind of like that tagged 6th season, but it felt like it was kind of billed as like its own offshoot thing. This is one of the better seasons as well. It sticks to arcs as well. It has 2 of the best arcs in the entire show. The Order 66 arc, we're still seeing the impact of that in the Bad Batch. It's one of the most heartbreaking Star Wars stories of all time, with Fives dying when he thinks he's finally reached the right people to show that these chips were implanted in the clones. It makes Order 66 all the more heartbreaking. And the Yoda arc at the very end, where he learns to commune with Qui-Gon and he learns to turn himself into a spirit of the Force. That's one of my favorite things as well. I love Force connected stuff, and I love learning about more mythology of the Force. I think I would go for an A with this one. And I don't know if I could put it higher than season 4, but it would be right next to season 4 above Clone Wars 03 for me.
This season is a little difficult because Order 66 arc, I mean, Fives is my favorite clone trooper of all time. He's the one who's a little too loud. That's why things affect him, and that's why he unfortunately meets his demise. It's a really strong tie-in and like a really good hint for stuff in Revenge of the Sith, and it also shows like the inevitability. Yes, you lose a little bit of autonomy, but the fact that this show focused on the autonomy of clones, on their individual and personal developments, just be superseded and stripped away for Order 66 is what makes it disturbing and sad. I do agree. I don't know if it is better than season 4. If you're gonna look at like the latter half of season 4 as a comparison, season 4 wins. So I would ultimately put it just behind season 4. And then we got on Disney XD Star Wars Rebels, which was the Clone Wars replacement. The animation, I think, is pretty good. It's very fluid. It's very Henner and Quarry inspired. Rebel Season 1 is fine. I think I also considered a lot of those Rebel shorts as part of Season 1 to kind of build up the characters. I think the best stuff that does happen in the season is with the Grand Inquisitor and that finale. Those are very good. It is a shorter season too that I think helps. I would give it a B for season one. I think it ends really strong, and that's what sold me on the season.
I agree. I would rank this in B tier. Season one of Rebels was the first real piece of Disney Star Wars that we got. The Grand Inquisitor and the Inquisitors in general add a nice bit of weight to this season. But everything else, there's a lot of just singular episodes that feel like a TVY7 animated Disney XD show. So we move on to Rebels Season 2. Rebels Season 2 was initially given that trailer where it was pretty epic trailer. We got to see Captain Rex and Gregor and Wolf all appear. And then after that, we can see Darth Vader. This season goes for it. There's a lot more darker, there's a lot of darker stuff. Even that first two-part kind of like mini film, two-part opening episode where Vader is using the Force on Ezra to almost make him kill himself with his own lightsaber. Like you could tell the show was starting to graduate a bit more into the Clone Wars level, that level that Dave Filoni probably always wanted it at, but that maybe Disney and Disney XD were a little afraid to put it at. And since season one was successful, they let it get there. And I think this season is fantastic. Still, this was the one that jumped us to about 22 episode seasons. And because we get to 22 episodes, there are plenty of filler episodes, plenty of episodes that are really just not that interesting. But for that beginning, and for that middle, when they go to the Lothal Temple, that's a wonderful episode as well. And because, especially of that end, the Twilight of the Apprentice episodes, where we get a re-reveal that Maul is back, we get the Ahsoka Vader fight, where Ahsoka finds out that Vader is Anakin once and for all. Some of those are some of my favorite Star Wars moments of all time. I would give this season an A, and I would say personally for me, I would probably put it right around Clone Wars 03, maybe right ahead of it, but right around that spot.
It's just like how when I look back at season two of the Clone Wars, I forget how strong season two of Rebels was. This was so important for Clone Wars fans too, just to see that even if we're not going to get the story told linearly, seeing the clones older, I think really hit people differently. I love the introduction of the new Inquisitors too. The honorable ones is like one of those episodes that like kind of like a rookies. I was like, oh wow, like that's a really good touching episode. I like that. Twilight of the Apprentice. I don't have to say anything. It is so good. Two best episodes of Star Wars animation ever. It's up there for a lot of people. And if you say that's your favorite, I would not disagree. It actually might be mine as well. Yeah, I would put it ahead of season one of the micro series. And now we can move into Rebels season three. It has a lot of good strengths. I will say give it that. But there are some things on retrospect that I don't love. I like a lot of the stuff with Maul and Ezra beginning stuff, but that stuff feels like it's rushed a little bit. Twin Suns and Zero Hour. Really good. Twin Suns, I mean, that's an iconic duel between Maul and Obi-Wan. Zero Hour is good, but I don't know if it's as strong as it could have been. It just wipes out the Rebels. For me, I don't know where I'd put this. Maybe I'd put this lower part of A. It's still a good, really good season, but I don't know if it's anywhere near as good as season two for me.
I'd put it in middle of A. I'd probably put it right after season one of the Clone Wars 03 series, but I don't think about season three as much as I feel like I should, because when I'm also doing research for this before the video, I was reminded how many great episodes are in season three. Twin Suns is one of my favorite Star Wars moments of all time, and I think the version of Thrawn we get in season three is well, very competent. First of all, he rarely loses in season three at all, and including Zero Hour. And I love when he goes face to face with Bendu. And Bendu's another character I really enjoyed them bringing back in here. I also liked kind of the re-establishment of the Mandalorian stuff from the Clone Wars that we got so much. And this is season three. Season two felt like when Dave Filoni was allowed to throw in a lot of the mythology he was helping create in the Clone Wars and just see what stuck. Season 3 was when it felt like it really transitioned to like, this is now Dave Filoni show and he's calling all the shots and he's getting to put in like everything. I did dig the Bendu. I thought Bendu was a really interesting addition. And then, of course, this is the season that has Maul and Maul's death, and all of that was really good. I would give this for sure an A. And I do think personally, I would put it right behind Clone Wars 03. Moving on to season 4 of Rebels, the last season we have to talk about. Season 4 of Rebels, personally, I think is the best season of Rebels. It is the most cohesive. You start out with the Mandalore stuff with Sabine, and you get a nice completion of her story there. This was the season that made me actually enjoy Lothal. Like, all the end stuff I thought was fantastic. Obviously, Kanan's death is one of the more impactful moments in Star Wars animation. Overall, I do think season 4 of Rebels is its best season. I think the shorter episode count also helps with that. It helps it feel a bit more cohesive and a bit more unified. World Between Worlds was another thing that they added that I thought was wonderful. So I would just probably put it still right behind seasons 4 and 6 of Clone Wars, but right ahead of season 2 of Rebels.
Yeah, I think that's the exact placement I would put too. Again, as great as Twilight of Apprentice is, it is only 2 episodes. The ending shots, the epilogue shots of season 4, paralleling the opening shots of season 1, showing how Lothal has been cleansed and purified. It's a golden field. It's a beautiful shot. I also like the recontextualization of like a lot of early characters, like a Vizago. I love the Palpatine appearance to make himself look younger and, you know, giving that opportunity to Ezra. It's short, but I'm remembering how sweet it was too. Something that's not as sweet is definitely Resistance. I don't really have much to say here. I want to keep this one short. Everything related to Resistance pretty short. I don't love Kazuda Iziono. We had an Ezra, we had an Ahsoka, and they grew up, but they never started off this childish. And this guy is supposedly in his 20s, right? The animation I think is quite good. It's cel shaded. I think it makes some of like the flying sequences, especially in season 1, looks quite fun, but it's not great. I want to say C tier.
Yeah, I was gonna say D tier for Resistance, and I think purely because when I compare it to the stuff that I put in C tier, Ewoks and droids, they're exactly what you think they are. They weren't going for, highbrow Star Wars. And we hadn't had highbrow Star Wars TV at that time. We had never had Star Wars TV really at that time. The fact that we got Resistance in a time when the sequels needed fleshing out and it was a show legitimately made for kids was definitely disappointing. And I know I try to be easy on Resistance a lot on our channel because we are definitely not the intended audience. But at the same time, we had just come off of Rebels that started out very kiddie and it ended up growing into something that both kids and adults can enjoy. I do like the animation. Cell shaded always looks good and it ages very nicely. So I think that's fine. But when it comes to Resistance, I would say D. It's definitely, if we're looking at the quotes, and I guess it says, "You disappoint me." Resistance disappointed me the most out of all these things.
Okay, I can go with D. I don't think I'm gonna really fight on you on this
Yeah.
one.
All right. Well, then looking at Resistance season 2, I'm okay tossing Resistance season 2 in C. I think it's a better season. It's a step up and it gets a bit more into, the stuff we wanted, the actual conflict of the sequels. And although Resistance never becomes important, it at least gets into the meat of the story in season 2. So I could give season 2 a C, but I'm also good with top of D.
I don't know. I'm gonna give this a D as well. For me personally, I did not find the season to be better than season 1. What does not work for me is that we spent so much time with Tam in the First Order scenes, and I don't know, she didn't develop enough in season 1 for her to make that leap in my mind. But I still think the buildup of the First Order in season 1, how it's used, is more effective. The tie into the Force Awakens was very cool as well. Okay, now moving on to the first live action Star Wars show, The Mandalorian season 1. I really do like season 1, even if I think it is flawed. The best parts come in the first 3 episodes alone. Still, say Rick's episode in the second episode of the first season is incredible to me. It's still in my top 5. I do not like 4 through 6. It ends really great. I think it's become a very overrated season. I would give it somewhere an A. I want to say it's better than Clone Wars micro series season 1. I think it's better than season 2 of Rebels.
I'm cool with that placement. I think The Mandalorian season 1 is overrated, but it is also really good in episodes 2, 3, and 8 are fantastic episodes. I think episode 1 and 7 are also really good. 5 is the only episode of all of the Mandalorian seasons so far that I think is actually bad. With that one bad episode, it definitely drops down a peg for me. But because it was our first Star Wars live action series that we got to see on television that was actually made, the feeling that you get watching this season, there's something magical about it. It is really good. But then we get to the final season of Clone Wars season 7. It came out during the pandemic. It was a really nice treat for a lot of us. And I think this season is really good. 3 different arcs in this season, all 4 episodes each. The Bad Batch arc, in retrospect, is wonderful because it introduced these characters, but I wouldn't say that's one of my favorite arcs. I think that's like a B plus. The Martez sisters arc is one of my least favorite in all of the Clone Wars, but Siege of Mandalore is a top 2, 3 arc of all time in Clone Wars. It's some of the best Star Wars storytelling we've seen, both in animated and in live action. And it definitely raises this season into that A tier for me. I don't know if I would say it's better than season 4, season 6, Rebels season 4, or Mando. But I think I could put it above season 2 of Rebels. I could also put it behind. It's around the season 2 of Rebels, Clone Wars '03 season 1, and Rebels season 3 level for me.
Siege of Mandalore is just that good. Considering the whole season, I don't think it's a great put together season. In my mind, I think this season would have been better if we went for an entire other arc too. Like you could have kept the Martez sisters arc, but if you gave me a Crystal Crisis arc before Siege of Mandal's perfection. I don't have anything to say other than if we cut the Martez arc by an episode, I wonder if you added an episode here, you'd flesh out a little bit more of the things that happened in Siege of Mandalore. But maybe would you have time to fit in an Obi-Wan or an Anakin perspective? But it's not a great put together season. I will say it is behind season 3 of Rebels. So next up we have The Mandalorian season 2. I know this is the season that where if you praise season 1, you absolutely just do not like season 2 as much. You just call it a cameo fest. And I don't know if I really like that because we've grown up as Star Wars fans throughout animation, throughout comics and whatnot. And characters have always interacted. Yeah, I know there's an argument that you make the universe feel small, but I don't think when you're a dude walking around with shiny armor with a literal baby Yoda that you wouldn't attract people, right? And he was tasked quite literally at the end of season 1 with returning him towards the Jedi. There was a good balance with Bo-Katan. That was extremely important to show the difference between him and his upbringing in the Death Watch cult versus an actual member of the real Death Watch and how she spun out of that and gives us also a good awareness of how little Din really knows about overall Mandalorian culture and heritage. Ahsoka was good because it is really the finalization of that quest. And then Luke coming in to save the day, I think was wonderful. I wish the deepfake tech was ready at that point, and it wasn't. You can't tell me you didn't have chills hearing the score, seeing Gideon frightened, seeing Grogu almost not want to say goodbye, taking on Mando's mask, and then finally being carried away by Luke and R2 dutifully by his side. That's an iconic shot. I think the worst episode is the one with the ice spiders, and I still had a lot of fun with that because Frog Lady, I would put it maybe just ahead of Rebel season 4.
I'm going S for Mando season 2. Mando season 2 is my favorite season of live action Star Wars TV. I completely don't understand anybody's criticism of this being a cameo fest. I really don't. I question your knowledge of Star Wars lore and your like interest in Star Wars mythology. Like Star Wars has always been in a very connected, interconnected world. And when we bring things logically from a show that has basically all of Mandalorian history in it, in a show called The Mandalorian, I think it makes complete sense. Somebody like Ahsoka, who is so heavily impactful on the history of Mandalore, needs to be in this show. Somebody like Bo-Katan, who was given the dark saber that everybody loved at the end of season 1, it had to be in here. And I think all of it is so important and so rewarding for us who have followed Star Wars for so long. This show does not say like, oh, you don't know who Ahsoka is, well, that's too bad. There's like a reintroduction to all these characters. There's name drops like Grand Admiral Thrawn, which get us excited, but doesn't really need to mean anything to anybody else yet. You'll see that. They'll explain it. I really don't get anybody's criticism about this thing being a cameo fest because the cameos are all good. They work. And we talked about how if Luke somehow doesn't find Grogu or sends somebody to find Grogu, he's like the worst Jedi Master of all time. It makes complete sense. The only reason they wouldn't do that was because they're afraid to do Luke. So I'm glad they did Luke. I think all of this is fantastic. All the episodes are really good to amazing. And like you said, I think my least favorite episode is the spider one. It's way better than episode 4, 5, and 6 in season one. So I would say S tier for this show. So let's move on to the Bad Batch season one. This was one of the first seasons we really covered start to finish on our show, and it definitely has a special place in my heart for that. I still think the Bad Batch season one is one of the best first seasons of animated Star Wars TV. It rides that line between Rebels and Clone Wars where it has some arcs, but it also has some singular episodes. Thankfully, it's not 22 episodes, it's down to 16. So it is a bit more compact in that through line narrative so that the singular episodes are more few and far between. But on top of that, there's the Order 66 two-part hour-long episode that starts off the whole season. There's so much great stuff with Crosshair. We get Hera in this season. I really like season one of The Bad Batch. I think I would put it at the bottom of our A tier, maybe probably behind season two of Clone Wars '03.
Yeah, it is a bottom of A tier for me as well. We've never had a first season of Star Wars TV in animation be this strong. It is so solid. Like you said, the reduced count really helps. And in the long run, once we look back at it in 5 years, once the show is done, we'll really appreciate it a lot more for only having like a max of out of 64 episodes, maybe like 8 fillers. I really do appreciate those episodes in Ryloth as well. I love Cad Bane literally having the metal skull cap. I really like the finale, and if it's a little bit more understated than I was hoping. Vision season one, it's not really episodic. It's because they're all very different, but I think it's quite good. I think there are some duds. Tatooine Rhapsody was one I was really hoping would be good. Not that great. I have been very strongly opposed to Lopen Ocho. I think it's just more of like I think the story has wasn't really structured well enough for what it's trying to tell. The Elder, the Village Bride. I like the duel enough. I love Night Jedi. And I'm really I do want to give props to Visions in the sense that it's left an impact on the fandom. I would give it a B.
I was going to go bottom of B as well. I think Visions is a really nice experiment. And since it is, and I did say at the beginning, we're only doing stuff in a continuity, it's the only thing out of continuity we're talking about here, but it's a really good show. We needed to talk about it. Because it's out of continuity, it feels a little less important. There are 4 great episodes of this show with the Duel, the Village Bride, the Elder, and the Ninth Jedi. I think all those are really, really wonderful episodes. And Akakiri is like right on that bubble. It's weird enough to like sit outside of my top 4, but I really enjoy what it's going for. The rest are kind of forgettable. I would put it behind Rebels and Clone Wars season ones. So we get into the probably one of the more controversial seasons of Star Wars television, The Book of Boba Fett. This is one of the most frustrating Star Wars things I've ever watched. You start out with a pretty lame first episode, and then you get into a really solid, nice episode 2 that seemed like it was setting us up for a direction that would have been interesting to take Boba, if not maybe the direction we all wanted it to go in. Episodes 3 and 4 kind of just flatten it, and the fact that we never go back to the Tusken Raider stuff made the first 4 feel very unnecessary and a little unimportant. Then we jump into 2 of the best Star Wars TV episodes of all time, but the catch is they don't have Boba Fett, so it's hard to even apply those to the Book of Boba Fett and like treat that as part of the season, because honestly the 6th episode, the Book of Boba Fett, is my singular favorite episode of Star Wars TV maybe ever, but it doesn't belong in the show, and neither does the Mandalorian episode, the 5th episode. I'm very torn where to put Boba Fett because I feel like as a show, as disjointed and completely messy as it is, it should be in C tier. I think it should be at the top of C tier above probably Ewoks and droids. And I think it should be in C tier. With those episodes, though, I have a really hard time putting it in C tier. I think I would probably settle at the bottom of B.
For me, it's interchangeable with Visions because of how good those episodes are. I really love episode 2, like you mentioned. It feels like it needed another draft. It is definitely a stopgap. I didn't love people of Mos Espa at all. The biker gang. I wish you could have tied Boba in a little bit more throughout those episodes. I remember watching 5, and as they're working on the N1 Starfighter, I'm like, okay, let's wrap it up. Like let's get to Boba or something, right? The finale is fine. This whole non-linear structure did not work for it. I really did not like that. Because then once you throw Cad Bane in at the end and not even like the main villain behind the scenes, it's like the shadow over him, he's just hired at the end. That was also kind of frustrating. I hope we get to season 2 because I think there's enough here that's good for me. And I want to see Boba. His final words are like, I don't think I should even be leading this God throw, right? I don't know if this is the life for me. And it's kind of like, why would you even have a season then of all this stuff? But it's a lot of ifs and buts. So I have to leave it right now at the bottom of B. The Obi-Wan Kenobi show. I myself really loved it. It is the most serialized Star Wars live action show we've gotten. I do agree that visually it doesn't look great. I was looking at Deborah Chow's episodes in season one of Mando, and the shaky cam here is just way too much. That being said, Ewan McGregor is powerhouse here. Hayden Christensen gets extreme redemption. Vader is perfection in this. I think the fourth episode isn't great. It is very Jedi Fallen Order Redux. Riva doesn't fit. I don't think the Inquisitors fit into the story. They're introduced and they were written as a holdover when this was a movie trilogy. I like her character. I want Jedi Survivor or something in this time period to cross over and make use of her because she deserves it. She could have just been stabbed and killed by Vader, and that would have been perfect of an ending for me. It's an A tier, either behind Mando season one or behind Rebel season two.
This is probably the hardest one I can think of to rate here. Obi-Wan Kenobi is my favorite character of all time. Said it so many times on this channel. And I enjoyed this show mostly because of him. Like you said, to reiterate, everything with Vader, everything with Obi-Wan, everything with Leia, I thought all that stuff was fantastic. Episode 4 is a huge missed opportunity that I think really disrupts the thematic elements of the show. It really could have helped settle down and stop what I think the biggest flaw with the show is like most of these Star Wars shows we complain about having filler. This one didn't feel like it had enough. There was a huge story here, and sometimes it felt a little too sped up. And I think four, if we used four to settle things down, 6 episodes would have been absolutely perfect. But we needed time with these characters. We needed time to sit with these characters. And I think that's one of the reasons why Reva and the Inquisitors do feel a little out of place, because they add another story element that kind of detracts from the screen time of settling back in with Obi-Wan, getting to see him re-become Obi-Wan Kenobi. There's plenty of things that I would have done differently. But I think with what we got, the moments we got for the character and the moments we got for like the big characters, Leia, Anakin, Obi-Wan, I think I would also agree on an A tier, probably right around Clone Wars season 3 level. I think it's the show's got flaws that definitely stick out and are apparent to me. And I can never watch it cleanly without like a little sense of regret. But I can't say I don't get, semi-emotional and really enjoy the ride all the way through every single time I watch it. Well, moving on to Andor season 1. Andor season 1, I think, is going to be an easy one to rank. Andor season 1 is easily the best season of Star Wars television from a production standpoint, a storytelling standpoint, a cohesion standpoint. I think it's fantastic. Personally, I would probably put it third on my ranking, behind Mando season 2 and behind Clone Wars season 5. It doesn't have that nostalgia element for me, and because Andor is a bit more of an understated show, it never gets to the point where you're like, holy moly, like that's just amazing, that's incredible. But I think the storytelling is what really shocked me. It's such an understated show while also really building a nice sense of tension towards our ultimate beginning of the Rebel Alliance, basically what kickstarts one of the big flash moments. Does such a great job with building character and really getting under the skin of normal people, not people with destiny, but not people guided by some type of mythical power, but it's normal people. And this is as grounded and real as Star Wars has ever been. I can completely see the argument for it being number one. I would put it S tier. It would be my bottom of S tier right now, personally.
I want to put it ahead of Mando season two, but I do have to agree. I think the arcs are really good. I don't think Star Wars has ever been this angry and like seething. The music is so good. I love what expanded out into a whole theme for Cassian. I really like that. I like the heist arc a little bit more than the prison arc, but that one was also really good. Thematically, it's so strong. I'll put it behind Mando season two because I don't think it ever made me like cry tears of joys. Last but not least, Tales of the Jedi. The Ahsoka stuff I'm fine with. They flesh out a lot of stuff in Clone Wars, sure, whatever. I like that first episode, again, as I've said on the channel before, doubling down on the Ahsoka Indian origins, and being Indian myself, I will always appreciate that. I think what I love though is the Count Dooku stuff. It ties in with Dooku Jedi Lost really well. I love the tragedy and the parallels to Anakin's own story here. I want to say it's like a bottom of A.
Yeah, this is another tough one to grade. Unlike Visions, because it's kind of standalone stories, I would say bottom of A as well. I think the Dooku elements raise it to that level. And if we're going to get consistent content for Tales of the Jedi. I would hope they're at that quality. The Ahsoka episodes, I think, are about like B episodes, B minus episodes. And that wraps up our tier list. So, as you can see, those are our rankings of the Star Wars television seasons. Let us know what you would do and how you would rank them. Let us know which ones you disagree with, which ones you do agree with. Let us know all that down in the comments below. If you haven't yet, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. Make sure you're tuning in every single week to our Bad Batch coverage. We're covering the Bad Batch season 2 every Wednesday and Friday. Make sure you're tuning into our JFO live streams every Friday as well. Make sure to check those out. We answer your questions live. It's a lot of fun. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.